Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Live from the Blue Seats. It is I, producer JL, coming at you here today, along with the guy who basically started it all, Mr. Dave Shapiro. Dave, how the heck are you doing? Good to have you
I'm a,
here.
I'm alive and breathing. I'm here. I know that it's been a while since I've been on a recording. Thanks for covering all these solo while our collective four kids between myself, Becky, and Rob are running amok amongst our lives. We're tired,
Just,
people.
just,
We're tired.
yeah, I could tell, and just from the stories that I hear, running amok is putting it lightly. But that's not a bad thing, though. It's not, or
No,
would
it's
you
not.
say it's a bad thing?
Honestly, so it's fun because my kids are usually up between 7 a.m. The little one goes down 7 p.m. The older one goes down 7:30, 8 o'clock. And from 7 a.m. till about 5:15, 5:30 p.m., they're amazing. And then we hit the witching hour. And you're laughing because that's like a red zone reference, but it's true.
Yes, it is.
They just flip into terrorists. I love them dearly. And that hour and a half takes so much out of you. It really
Um,
does.
I'm sure. No, I bet. I mean, I don't have kids yet, but I did.
That you know of.
At that. No, I think I'm pretty clear on that, thankfully. But I did have to take care of my nephews when they were growing up, and I just know it wasn't easy. So that's why I try not to get on parents too much unless they're like actual parents. But these guys aren't. They're not bad parents. So So I'm glad that you're here, Dave, and hopefully Becky and Rob will be back with us sooner than later. Real life obviously comes before all this. But to kind of go back in the fantasy land, the New York Rangers. So it's not really fantasy land, but it's just more or less, fantasy land. Um, so New York Rangers, 5-6-1-1,
They
right?
look good. They
Playing
look
really
good.
well. They look very good. I mean, obviously, like there's some people that we know will say, "Oh, we have to wait until April and May," but it's not April, May. It's October. So we're gonna take a look at it now, and they're playing very well. So let's
And
just
in
get
all
right.
fairness, you don't have to wait till April or May. You can wait till basically my cutoff is Black Friday. At that point, we know what the team is pre-trade deadline.
Yeah.
And
Oh yeah.
at that point, they are what they are until they decide to make moves. We
Right.
have what Black Friday is, what 20-ish games in a quarter of the season. That's when we'll know.
Just about. My cutoff generally is I try to generally get a feel of the team a little bit after that. Usually for me, it's middle December because if you look at, even though they weren't the best, the Rangers did have that turnaround after Black Friday 2 years ago on the brink of a potential Gerard Gallant execution, which that's how it felt at the time.
Oh
So they
God, I
were able to,
remember that. The
yeah,
Vegas
so they
thing
were
where he should have gotten fired and didn't. Was that
and
year?
didn't. Um, I no, it was the game was I think against St. Louis.
Oh, was that the helmet throw game?
No, the helmet throw
No.
game happened no, it happened all within the span of a couple of weeks of each other, but the helmet game happened early on in that month, and then they were still kind of struggling, and then they had that game against St. Louis where Lafreniere was playing on the top line with Capo Caco, and they just kind of balled out, as the kids like to say, and then they just kind of shot up from there because then, uh I think they from what I remember, because I was at one of the games against Pittsburgh, and then there was a few other games, like one in Chicago, which had followed. They were just beating the snot out of everybody. So they had come together, but and that's the reason why I generally tend to say you make the cutoff at least a little bit after Black Friday because you never really know. But we're talking about the team and they're doing really well. 6-1-1. The only really blemish was you could really say the Utah game, but that was just more of just kind of getting their feet together. And then obviously the, Florida Panthers game. But let's start with the good. So tell me or give me your sort of thoughts or ideas on what's gone really well with this team so far on this run.
The bottom six. I mean, this is what Filipino does for the lineup. We can talk about the fourth line in a second because they've been good, but it's the third line that has been opening up space and time for the top six. I know that sounds weird because they're not on the ice at the same time, but if you were listening preseason over the summer when we were still recording, I was saying Filipino is a guy that the Rangers need in the lineup. He changes everything for the Rangers, and he is changing everything for the Rangers. That third line can score. That third line is currently one of the best in hockey right now. They defend, they score. They're not even on the ice for more than what 12, 13 minutes a game, but
Mm-hmm.
in doing so, they stretch the lineup, they make the lineup deeper, they open up easier matchups for themselves. They force the opposition to adjust, opening up ice for Panarin's line. Zibanejad still getting the shutdown role. Whether or not he's effective, we'll talk about that in a little bit. And the fourth line is just doing their job.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone talks about the third line, and as they should, Heedle is the catalyst there. He's the driver there. But the fourth line hasn't been scored on at 5-on-5 either.
Mm-hmm. Right.
When you
Well,
have depth performing, your top six will eventually figure it out, hopefully.
mm-hmm.
And that's what you need. This is one of the areas that the Rangers lacked most of last season and in the playoffs. A third line that could also score. I know Wenberg made that third line a defensive juggernaut, but they couldn't score to save their lives.
Right.
Heedle changes that. Heedle is Wenberg defensively plus insert good second line center offensively here. Pick a name. Strom, except he can hit empty nets.
Well, that was always the prevailing attitude with Strom. But no, you're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head there. And also too, like you said, that the fourth line hasn't been scored on 5-on-5. The third line hasn't been scored on 5-on-5. I think it's what they're 8-0. They're 6 or 7-0 or 8-0. I think the bottom fourth line is 5-0. I guess from the numbers that I was looking at least in terms of like games or something like that. If I'm reading that stat correctly, if I'm not, please correct me. But you
I
can
don't have
tell.
it open right now.
But I
I
think
can pull
most
it
people
up.
know. Yeah, I think most people know what I'm referring to, though. But I mean, if you if
Yeah.
you if you pull it up and say it, that'll be fine. But the thing that I'm noticing with this team is that they're playing. Not that they didn't play more as a unit last year, because that was the really big thing that propelled them. But it just kind of seems as if a lot of what we were essentially complaining about from even in the Eastern Conference Final seems to have somewhat been addressed for the most part. Granted, you can say, oh, well, they're not really playing that heavy style like the Panthers are, but I mean, maybe that's just not how the Rangers have to win a series against a team like that. Maybe they have to employ some other sort of strategy. I think
Oh
the
god,
thing
don't get
that
me fucking started on that shit.
yeah, I think the thing that people tend to not understand is that you can't sometimes you just can't play the same way as another team, because the Rangers tried that in 2022, or at least in 23 against the Devils, and it burned them. When they didn't play their game and they weren't a cohesive unit in whatever way that they played, whether it was cohesive or not, and they tried to do the whole, speed thing, which they couldn't do at the time. It burned them in the playoffs, and the Devils took advantage of it. The thing that I like to see now is that not only are they getting a lot of strong 5-on-5 numbers, but the defense is a lot more mobile now. Look, Eric Gustafson, thank you for your service. I appreciate what you've done here, but you can tell he was pretty much getting worn out at the end. And now with guys like Zach Jones, even Victor Mancini on the back end, and even to a lesser extent Chad Ruedel, those guys move the puck way better than Eric Gustafson and Jacob Trouba together. And then Jacob
Yep.
Trouba is moving it a lot better now with partners who are mobile. And that was the big thing, really, that was the issue with this team in the conference final. It wasn't the whole, "Oh, they need to play tougher," or this and that and the fourth. They had enough skill on that team, they were able to hold up the Panthers for 6 games, which, I mean, they didn't get blown out in any of those games like they did to the Oilers. They just needed to be a little bit more mobile, and they probably could have taken it to 7 and maybe even scratched out a win in that aspect. So it's nice to see that they're doing that now. They're really trusting Zach Jones out there. Um, Ryan Lindgren's even looked a lot better since he's come back from his injury outside of a shaky first game, and then Jacob Trouba has kind of sort of looked a little bit better. Um, Obviously, goaltending's goaltending, and, obviously, Panarin, Lafreniere, and Trocheck have looked pretty good. We'll get to Lafreniere in a little bit, but now let's kinda flip the script a little bit here. Um, Even though, obviously, we're not gonna be negative Nancy's here, but obviously you have to evaluate the good and the bad. Just from this stretch so far, what do you see that's kind of not the best in terms of just overall team performance or even individual performance?
All right. So I'm going to focus at the team level, not at the player level. I'll leave that for you, JL, because I know what you're going to say. Um, on the
I don't,
team,
but enlighten me.
you're going to talk Mika Zibanejad.
Oh, okay.
I have a feel. Oh, am I wrong? Seriously?
No, you're not. I just that threw me off.
Oh, well, why I'm saying that is the bigger team focus, and the reason why I said, don't get me started on that shit with the whole play heavier thing, is the true need, aside from perhaps Heedle insurance in case he gets hurt again, is seeing what they have, truly, truly have in Zach Jones. And the reason I say that is the game against Florida that everybody lost their fucking minds on was lost not because they didn't have Matt Rempe in the lineup. I like Matt Rempe. You can't play him until he's no longer a target by the refs. Enough already. His 4 minutes a game on a that would take what Brodzinski out of the lineup on a good fourth
Mhm,
line. That's not the issue. Enough already. Stop shouting into the void. You're
mhm.
wrong.
Yep,
I like
I agree.
Rempe. He's going to be fine. I like him. The issue is puck moving defensemen that can make the smart, quick, good read with the puck with two guys on him. Keandre Miller can do it. Adam Fox can do it. I believe Zach Jones can do it. The Rangers lose to Florida because they can't get out of their own zone. You get out
Mhm,
of your own zone with a defenseman that can make that first read and make that quick pass to a center or another defenseman that is circling back to give options. That's why, again, Heedle makes a difference. Is he and Trocheck used to be Zibanejad too, but for some reason he stopped doing this. He and Trocheck circle back to the hashes to give the defenseman an out in the middle of the ice.
mhm. Right.
But the problem is only Fox and Miller can do this right now. And when you don't play Jones, they can load up against the other two pairs, and the Rangers are pinned.
Mhm.
That's hockey 101. Get the puck out of your own damn zone. The Rangers can't do that. Matt Rempe sure as shit ain't helping them there. I like Rempe. He's a
Right.
good matchup player. He has some things to work on, but he is not playing right now. He's not playing better than Adam Edstrom. He is not playing better, and I can't believe these words coming out of my mouth, than Sam Carrick. He's not playing better than Johnny Brodzinski, who
Right.
I love all the commenters on the site. I read your comments when I can. There's like 5 or 6 of you that just go back and forth on Brodzinski being Johnny B. Bad. And I'm sorry, you're wrong. You are flat out wrong. I like it's
He's been
creative. I
very
like that.
effective.
It's
Yeah, Johnny
creative.
B.
I
Bad.
like that. I like the name. It was
Yeah,
creative. I'll give you
Johnny
guys
B.
that.
Bad. I like
Johnny B.
that.
Bad was creative. I'll give you that. But
But
you're
Brodzinski's been
wrong.
effective, though. He's
He's
been
been
effective.
effective. He's been a driver on the line. The fourth line is not the problem. It's they can't get the
No.
puck out of their zone against Florida. That's it. That's
Mm,
it. That's the problem. And until they address that, Matt Rempe ain't fixing shit.
right.
I'm off my soapbox. I'm sorry. Johnny B. Bad was funny though. I'm giving them that one. Johnny B. Bad was funny.
No, that was pretty good. No, but just to add to your point on that, also just a real sidebar, just to add to one of the pros because you mentioned his name. Um, Adam Edstrom, phenomenal. I mean, he's fit the bill better than anyone could have thought. And, you know, he's had an edge to his game that he didn't have in Hartford. You know, I asked Hope, who just recently joined the blog, and she's done a phenomenal job. She covers the Wolfpack a lot, and I was curious because um, he had that fight in the Utah game, and I heard or saw somewhere online that that was his first ever fight. And I'm wondering, like I said, did he ever have this kind of edge in Hartford? It's like, no. So it's nice to see that Edstrom has done well in the role that he's given and really not been a problem. But just to touch on what you were saying, and just the point that was alluded to before, just puck movement out of the zone. I'm glad that Laviolette was able to kind of see that, at least from what I can recall from the switch that he made right after, to kind of get away from not having a guy like that on your back end, because almost immediately the next game you have, you win. And also, just to touch on another thing too, is just to kind of highlight Philip Hedel again. If you look at what happened last year, so the decline on the Rangers 5-on-5 play from when the season started last year till when Hedel got hurt was not a coincidence. And also with Kako coming out too, people don't seem to
People
credit Kako.
underestimate him. They
People
really do.
underestimate him. Yeah, he's not scoring a lot of goals, but I think at this point you just kind of have to get the whole draft position out of your head and just try to see if he's an effective NHLer or not. Because there are players who have not been effective, drafted either at the same draft position or maybe even higher. So you're getting a lot out of a guy, even though he's not scoring a bunch of goals like he should, but you're still getting something out of him. But so like you said, Philip Hedel's critical, and losing him last year didn't help with the whole moving the puck around, bringing it back, and whatever. And another thing that I wanted to mention too, which you can add your thoughts after, um, and this is not me hating on the guy. I don't want it to come out that way. I had to clarify some comments in our chat because I didn't want it to make it seem like I was blaming him on all of the problems that we've had on a team. Because you're 5-1-1 now, 6-1-1, and you don't just want to pin it on one guy. But
Oh no,
I
you
think
were. It's
there
all
was
your fault. You were. That's your fault.
no, I was not. Thanks, Dave.
No
No,
problem.
but it's not unreasonable to try to it's not unreasonable to try to expect a lot from Mika Zibanejad. Now, I know he's here for the long run, and I'm gonna root for him. I like the guy a lot. I love the way that he plays, but something's a bit off. I don't know what it is, so to speak, because maybe it's just either father time's getting to him, or he's just something's up mentally or something's up physically. Something's not right.
Didn't he just
Because
have
if
a
you look
kid?
at yeah, but that was like last year, but I'm not gonna
That
take that
that
away
doesn't
from him.
matter. I can assure you, it
No,
might be a sleep thing. It
it might
honestly might
be.
be a sleep thing.
Which, if that's the case, I hope he remedies it because, physically he looks fine. It's just, and I feel like with him, it just kind of seems like he's obviously pressing, okay? And if I'm paying a guy $8.5 million, I want to at least have him, either even I'll even take power play merchant Mika at this point, and he's not even doing that. Now, I'm not going to sit here and say that this guy's a problem and I want to get rid of him and he sucks and this that. No, I'm just concerned, and rightfully so, that the guy that the Rangers are paying 8.5 million is not producing up to what an 8.5 million contract can be. And oh, well, didn't you just say that draft position shouldn't really matter in terms of Kako? I did say that, but also when they signed him to the contract, he was putting up the numbers that you would expect. Heck, it was even, you could even call it a discount, because he was more aggressive with the puck. He wasn't as I don't say as selective, but he was just kind of making the play. It just all came very natural because Mika's a big man. He's not a tiny guy. The guy can skate. The guy can shoot. He can dominate a game on his own. And I believe that the skill is still there, but something's not connecting. And I don't know if it's the sleep thing or if it's a mix with conditioning with Laviolette. I'm not going to make assumptions, but I am a little concerned that he's not, putting up the numbers that he should. Now, if he was getting paid a little less and was basically deployed as a third line center, then that's a different story, because then I can get it. Okay, well,
Well,
he's still playing well,
I
very
need to cut you off on this one because holy shit! Thank you, Fitz, for retweeting this into the timeline. You're saying deployment as a
okay.
third line center. Kreider Zibanejad Smith has the third most on the team minutes at 5-on-5. Third most.
Well,
Laftrocek
well,
Panarin is one. Cooley Hidalkako is two.
well, the point I was gonna make in
Sorry
terms
to
of,
cut you
you
off,
know
but I
no,
knew
no,
you were
no, no.
saying that.
No, no, you're good because it actually kind of just brings up something else that I was gonna mention. Um, is that he's still playing very well defensively. Like he's still like even Rob alluded to this a few times, is that defensively he's fine. So that's another thing is that okay, I could understand maybe if there was a bit of a drop off in that, then okay, I'd be, oh okay, I could understand why things are not going as well on both sides of the puck, but he's still playing very well defensively. And Kreider, Smith, and Zibanejad have been phenomenal 5-on-5, just getting chances and puck possession. Riley Smith addition's done really well. You can add that to the positive list so far. And he's had a couple nice goals too. But I think I'm not saying that I want him to score every night, but there was a Mika that I saw even 2 years ago that I don't see now, and I don't know if that's attributed to age or maybe he's just thinking too much, but something is off.
Oh
And
yeah, absolutely.
I'm more than willing to ride, and I still love the guy, and I know he's gonna be great, and he still will be great. It's just a little concerning is all. I know I just did a whole, like, word salad there, but, I just don't
No,
want it
I
to make it
follow.
seem like I just don't wanna make it seem like I'm just totally dogging the guy like a lot of people are on the timeline or just, like, in general, because really he's still a super effective player regardless of whether he's scoring a bunch of goals or not. It's
Well,
just I just expect a little more offensively is all, really.
yeah. I mean, it would be nice to have something offensively at 5-on-5, but let's be real. The reason why the Rangers are doing fine is because the third line is producing at 5-on-5. So, well, based off of what I just said, they're technically the second line now, and Kreider,
Right.
Zibanejad, Smith is now the third line based off 5-on-5 ice time, which is
Mhm.
something that really should be published a little more.
Right.
So Fitz retweeted it, but it was at Davey Upper that tweeted it
Okay.
about this time on ice thing. And this goes back to something we've been talking about that I actually wrote about a couple weeks ago about how Zibanejad's role has changed.
Mhm.
And
Rob alluded to that too a couple times.
contract aside, we
Right.
want an $8.5 million center to be playing like an $8.5 million center. He's not. Sorry. We need to move past that. That doesn't matter at this point. Contracts don't matter anymore. What
Right.
matters is a team balance and cohesiveness that moves the needle. Kreider, Zibanejad, Smith is a shutdown line. They are getting on a night in, night out basis the Crosbys, the Larkins, I think they were, I haven't checked the shift chart from the Florida game. I'm pretty sure they got oh my God, Kachuk line. They go up against top competition. And yeah, they're getting absolutely hammered every night. But if they are able to limit that top line on the opposition to what, a goal every 3 games, they're going to win a lot of games. They're going to win a lot in the playoffs too, big if they're able to do that.
Oh, yeah. And to that point, Rob, like I had mentioned, Rob had mentioned this point on one of our previous podcasts, is that you're essentially stuck with the contract. So now you have to reevaluate how you use him. And it seems like the Rangers are doing that.
Yep.
And I think, with the whole Heedle situation on I don't know, on 5-on-5 in general, and with pretty much a lot of the offensive output coming from the um, Panarin, Trocheck, and Lafreniere line, um, it could kind of make up for that a little bit. And you could see it working. And obviously, Riley Smith, not the player that he used to be, but he's going to get you 20 goals. And that's definitely a lot more than what they've had in previous partners for that line. So, you know, while I'd want a little more from Mika, it's right now things are going pretty well. It's just a little bit of a cause for concern, but I'm not going to sit here and just start railing on the team because they're winning, and that's what you want, and it's definitely nice to see considering the state of New York sports in other parts of sports. Um, all things considered, it's nice to see a New York team actually like thriving well in a situation, even if it's early in the season. But just to kind of pivot now, so Alexis Lafreniere. who is part of pretty much, I don't want to say generational, but probably one of the best lines the Rangers had in probably 10 years or so.
I
Um,
would say they
he
are the best line they've had since Yager, Straka, Nylander.
I was gonna say that. I was gonna mention that, and you're right. Panarin, Trocheck, Lafreniere, best offensive line since Jagr, Straka, Nylander. There's this sort of like offensive forcefulness that they have that the previous, that Jagr, Straka, and Nylander had, where they could just come in and move around and find the back of the net. And in doing that, Alexis Lafreniere was handsomely rewarded with a 7-year, I think it was a $7.5 million
7 years,
extension.
$7.45 million
Seven
contract extension.
So 7 years, $7.45 million. Initially the contract was reported to be 8 by 8, but there was some sort of issue with the cap, so they decided to rework it. He left a little bit of money on the table, and it's great for not only the fans but also for the team and the Rangers themselves, because now you lock up a guy who has not only proven his worth, but has now given the Rangers an elite, and yes, he is elite, contrary to what a lot of people say, an elite young scoring winger that they drafted. So just give me your thoughts on that a little bit, Dave.
What a turnaround for a laugh. I mean, 2 years ago, we were on this pod talking about his skating and rumblings that the Rangers might want to move him, and
Mhm.
Vancouver was interested. And we were all wondering what's going on. Is it coaching? Is it work ethic? Is it skills coaching, which is different from head coaching? Is it deployment? It
Mhm.
turned out to be all of the above.
Yes, it did.
So, one coaching change, well, Lavi, Dan Muse, et cetera,
Christian
Michael
Hamura,
Pekka,
don't forget him.
Kimura too, because um, what's the guy that I hate's name? The old skills coach.
Giacchio.
Yeah,
Giacchio.
him. What a train wreck he was. I mean, once you get the right guys in, it's not that hard to get elite talent out of an elite player.
Mhm.
And Lav has earned this, and I can't believe these words are coming out of my mouth. Maybe the Rangers benefited from the crappy coaching and the slow start because that kept the AAV down.
Right.
And something else to consider, he has a no move, which is not the same as a no trade. He just can't be demoted, which you're not going to demote Lav, let's be real.
Mhm.
And it's a modified no trade for 8 teams throughout the life of the deal. And 51% of his money is earned in the first 3 seasons. So this is not a Zibanejad contract that is buyout proof, that is trade proof, all the above. If
It gives the team
Lafreniere
security.
yeah, so he gets his bag of 52.15 million over 7 years. He gets at 30 years old another big contract. Hopefully, well, we'll talk about that in 7 years. He gets another big
Right.
contract. And if the Rangers all of a sudden can't fit him under the cap, he wants to go somewhere, he wants to pull a Ricky Williams and go smoke weed in Fiji somewhere, they can just trade him and a team will gladly take a 7.45 million cap hit for, let's say, the last 2 years on his contract for $6 million each. So that's,
Mhm.
they save 2.9 million dollars in real money versus cap hit by moving him. Then it
Right.
gives team outs, it gives laugh outs, and it fits for everything they need for their immediate window plus their transition period and their opening of the next window.
Right. And I've noticed a lot. Obviously, you hit the nail on the head there. Like you said, he's earned it, and the team has, everything that's happened and transpired has been nothing but solid for the team. And it's obviously come at a great time because he's blossoming into his own when this team is really beginning to emerge as serious contenders for a cup. But also, you look at that number in a cap that could be way higher in 7 years than it is right now. So it gives them that flexibility to kind of do that. And Chris Drury, to his credit, a lot of people like to slam the guy. Yeah, he's had a couple of missteps, of course, but nobody's perfect. But I can tell you something right now. Drury is a very shrewd but really good negotiator when it comes to putting these contracts out, because he was able to keep Lafreniere here for not only for the price that he was able to do, he was also able to keep Adam Fox here. Granted, some of that might have been, a hometown discount because he grew up a Ranger fan, but with a guy like Fox should easily be making 11 mil on the cap. He's a lot better than some of these guys who are making more than him out there. I mean, Brady Shea is making $7.5 million, and it's no
He's making
disrespect
whoa,
to
whoa,
Brady.
whoa, 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 whoa. Brady Shea got a 7 point. Where the fuck was I when that was signed?
I hold on. Let me just double check that now because
There's no way
I
that's
just
right. No
hold
way.
on. I I have to
He's
look
with
at it
who
now.
now? Nashville?
I think he's on Nashville, I think, but maybe I'm referring to somebody else that I heard. Hold on, I have to double check. Well, he's making 4.4 million right now, but I think at one point he was making about 7, if I'm correct.
No, he's making
Eh,
he's making $7 million a year.
Yeah, he is, right? I was right on that, right?
He signed a 7 year, $7 million contract with Nash. Holy shit, that's gonna age
Okay.
poorly.
Okay, so my point proven. My point proven is that you have a guy like Adam Fox making 9.5. And Brady Shea is making just about 2 million less, and he's way less of a defenseman than he is. So give credit to Chris Drury, and it's also nice to see Lafreniere. I don't really like to say that I want players to take less than what's on the table, but I guess it's a different mindset when there's a salary cap than on a sport that's kind of like without a salary cap. Like I have a bit of a different um thought process when it comes to baseball. But at the same time, if the number's reasonable, don't see why the team can't do it or why the player can't do it. I'm not gonna Igor talking about Igor on the contract. That's another episode because we'll be here all day for that.
Oh
But
yeah.
Igor rejecting, what was it, 11 mil, just about 10, 11 mil.
Uh, it was, yeah, I think it was 11 million.
Yeah, so Igor rejecting 11 million in a tight cap situation that I don't think many teams would ever really do is a bit absurd. But I don't hate Igor for it, but I just think he's got bad representation. That's a different story. But
Yeah,
it's nice
that
to see.
that
Nice to see.
we'll talk about that next week.
Right. But it's just nice to see that both sides are able to come to a deal that can benefit the team and the player, because Laugh makes his bag, like you said, and the team gets the flexibility. So it's nice to see that. And also, too, it aligns with not only keeping him and Trocheck together for a very long time, but I also think this might also influence Panarin to stay on the team for a deal that could also be friendly as well. Because truth be told, I think Panarin stays here after his contract ends, which is what, 3 more years from now. But
Something like that. I think no, it's
yeah,
this year and next. This year and
this
next.
year. So I don't think Panarin's going anywhere. If he does, I'll be shocked. But that's beside the point. But that just that's it's just nice to see that the Rangers have valued the development of their players, and they actually invest in it, and it's actually worked out. So that's good. That's good to see about that. So now, I guess one more topic is so I guess I guess this is kind of like a general thing, and you touched on it a little bit earlier. I guess we can expand on it a little more, and I'll start off with it. Is Matt Rempe? So Rempe was demoted to Hartford, and I know if for some reason everybody makes this guy out to be like this either pariah. It's either one of the two. He's either a pariah or he's the greatest thing since sliced bread. Okay, so Rempe was demoted the other day. He went back to Hartford, play a game for them or two, think. And everyone is like either up in arms about it or everyone is asking for this kid's head on the gauntlet. So just in general, I know we've talked a little bit about it I don't want to say ad nauseum on this podcast, but it just kind of seems to be like this is sort of the thing that's popping up. And with his demotion, I guess we'll have to bring it up again. But I'll just say this about Matt Rempe is that he's not the savior the team needs, right? He's not the guy that everyone expects him to sort of make a statement every single night, but the kid does have some usefulness to him. And there will be other times where he will get sent back down to Hartford, and honestly, he just might need it. Because if you look at the way the fourth line's going right now, the fourth line, Edstrom, Carrick, which is a nice surprise, and Brodzinski have been nothing but solid, right? But then at the
Yeah,
same
that line
time,
has been it's been stealing something from the Islanders. One of the best fourth lines in hockey.
Right. And, you know, you don't wanna break that up, but also there will be times where you might need to make a change, and Matt Rempe's good for that. But at the same time, Rempe's not this net negative that a lot of people like to make him out to be just because he's big or he takes a lot of hits. The kid's young. He's raw. A guy like that, you kinda have to mold a little bit. And, he definitely grew up a little bit as the season went along, even in the playoffs. But if he just has the right direction, I think he can be a useful NHLer, and he has been a useful NHLer from when he's been called at certain times. It's just not one that you can currently rely on a lot right now, you know? So, and then right before we recorded this, Rempe was called back up. So whether or not
Yep.
he's gonna ride the whether or not he's gonna sit in the press box again or he's gonna, play again. But I
Oh,
just think
they got
more
Washington coming up, Tom Wilson, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
so he'll probably be in the lineup. So Brodzinski might sit. So,
Yeah.
but it's okay because they're still effective, you know? Just give me your thoughts on all this that's gone on with Rempe and why this won't ever end because everybody seems to hate this kid, even though he's like a really nice guy.
So it's funny because any criticism I give of Rempe comes off as I hate the kid. I don't. I love this kid. I love the energy. I love the way he plays. I don't love that the refs have a target on his back.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I
That's
know.
the issue. You can let a guy like Rempe sit on the fourth line and figure it out as long as he's not getting penalties called for sneezing too hard, which is basically what's happening. I
Yeah.
didn't get I didn't watch the Utah game. I was upstate. I think that was the weekend I was upstate. I don't remember offhand. I was
Yeah.
somewhere. And I couldn't watch the Utah game. And I saw a replay of the goalie interference call that had the goal called back. That was a load of shit. That was a crappy
Yeah, it
call.
was.
That
It
was a
was.
bullshit call that if it's anybody other than Matt Rempe in front of the net is not a goalie interference call. And there is absolutely nothing you can say that will sway me or make me think or make me doubt my thought process. I am losing words. I don't sleep anymore. Give me a break, people. But there is nothing you can say that will convince me. There we go. There was nothing you can say that will convince me otherwise. There we go. I found English. It's tough.
Way to go, David.
There's nothing you can say that will convince me otherwise that if it's Zibanejad in front of Kreider in front of the net, there we go. Somebody who's actually going to be in front of the net. If it's Kreider in front of the net, that's a goal. If it's Edstrom in
Mhm.
front of the net, it's a goal. If it's Tom Wilson in front of the net, it's a goal. If it's Brad Marchand in front of the net, it's a save because he's too short. But Rempe
Oh.
got the call, got the penalty, or sorry, the goal was disallowed because Rempe is Rempe. And that's a problem. You can't play a guy who's going to get a penalty or have a goal disallowed or something just by sneezing wrong, just by putting a toe in the crease and then coming back out a full second before the shot comes.
Mhm.
Like, that's not a viable fourth liner. And aside from that, he has little aspects of his game to work on a better first read, better overall reads in the defensive zone, some edge work, some skating work, some stick handling work. Everything that a 22-year-old needs to work on when he's a seventh round draft pick.
Right.
I
And
think he's a seventh round pick. I'm pretty sure he's a seventh round pick.
well, either way, he's a late round pick. So, but either way, it's
Sixth round. Sorry, sixth
sixth round.
round. Don't yell at
So
me,
so
people.
but either way though, he's it's not like he's not workable because there've been a lot of players who have come up either in a very similar frame or just with a very similar skill set. Um, Clearly, whatever he's done has added value to this team because not only, like you said, his energy, is there. It's really brought a lot to the team. It's kind of like similar to actually, I'll use Ryan Reeves as the comparison. Ryan Reeves is purely a vibes guy at the time. Yeah, he
And
had
I
some
loved Reeves when he was here too. I loved Reeves.
I did too. I really did like him a lot, and you can tell the team really fed off of it, especially during that first run to the conference final, even though he didn't play. But, um, even a guy like that, he's limited in what he can do, and you can see the limitations when he's out there. Rempe, you can tell you can mold it. And like you said, I don't think it's fair that he's got a target on his back all the time. But how exactly do you get around that? It's like, do you have to build up a reputation? Do you have to sort of kind of rewrite some sort of narrative on the ice? But how do you do that though? That's what I'm trying to figure out. Is the guy can be a useful NHL player, but you don't want to torpedo basically his whole career because he's got a target on his back. I don't think that's fair. And it also sucks because
He's a good
some
guy. He's a
he
good
is a
kid.
good
Like
guy.
you look at
He
him, he's like their mascot. He is amazing. Like you look at him, he's just so happy. I love it.
right. He's as they like to say, he's got German Shepherd energy. You see it when he's out there. He's just happy to
Oh,
be here.
off
He's
topic. When I
yes.
was upstate, there was a German Shepherd Husky mix puppy
Ooh.
sitting next to us at the I don't know the name of the distillery, but it's the Hudson Whiskey Distillery upstate. And
Uh-huh.
that dog is gorgeous, amazing energy, and had the husky attitude too. Just it was amazing. Anyway, sorry.
Oh, no, that's lovely. I love those types of dogs, especially husky mixes. They're so cool. But
Yeah,
Rempe really he really has like golden retriever energy. And I could understand like Tom Wilson, the discourse is justified because Tom Wilson, even in post-game quotes and just his attitude on the ice, I mean, I'm not going to question the man's character because I don't know him outside of hockey, but just from his stuff on the ice, you can tell he's kind of a scumbag. And I'm gonna say that, outside of the ice, maybe he's a really nice guy. It's like Brad Marchand. Brad Marchand's a prick on the ice, but he's a really nice guy from
he
what I've
actually
seen.
is a good dude. Like if you looked
Yeah.
at what he does, he's actually a good dude, Brad Marchand.
No, he actually is a good dude. And I'm sure Tom Wilson's not a bad guy off the ice, but on the ice, he's a prick. And I don't see that with Matt Rempe. There's a difference between being a prick on the ice and playing heavy, or at least using your physicality. Now, we can sit here and debate on whether or not he's going to, he has to be more aware of his surroundings with his arms and, the timing of his hits or whatever. But I just don't think it's fair. And honestly, I think if the Rangers play their cards right, I think Rempe can be useful for this team. I mean, he was useful for a couple of games in the playoffs last year. Guy scored if you would have thought that Matt Rempe was going to score the opening goal in the Stanley Cup playoffs last year, you were not going to guess that. Even I couldn't guess that, and I have really dumb luck with that kind of stuff. And I
So
knew that
isn't that the same as when like Tanner Glass scored the opening goal one year?
against the Montreal Canadiens, it was a
The
sick
backhander, the
off kick to
backhanded
Carey
snipe to
Price.
the top corner.
Oh my goodness. I never would have expected. I didn't even see that goal happen. I had to hear about it because I was out somewhere.
Yeah. It
I
was
heard
Chris
about it.
Kreider's fault that Carey Price didn't stop it. By the way.
Oh yeah, of course, because it's always Chris Kreider's fault. But anyways.
So,
All
can I
right.
just say one thing that's absolutely hilarious about Matt Rempe?
Yes.
It is absolutely the funniest thing that Matt Rempe's mere presence, a 20 at the time 21-year-old, could barely even drink legally in the states. At that time, he forced the Devils to
I was just
sign
gonna
Curtis
mention that.
McDermott, then extend him for 3 fucking years. The Islanders have now re-signed Matt Martin. The Leafs have Ryan Reeves, although I think that
Ryan
happened
Reeves.
before. That happened
It
before. They
did.
signed Reeves like 18 years or some shit like
But
that.
they use him a lot though, especially against
Yeah,
the Rangers.
he like it is hilarious to me that teams are just so scared of his 3 minutes a night.
It's insane.
And I love this kid. I really hope it works out, and at some point we get an Edstrom, Rempe, Rubric line. Dylan Rubric,
Oh,
another
goodness
9 foot guy
gracious.
on
Like,
skates that skates well, that plays defensive hockey well. He's built
kid
a
is
lot like Adam
huge.
Edstrom.
Yes, he is.
I can't wait for that
I mean
line.
I mean, I
I just
know.
want it
And the
once
thing
in
about
one
Rubric,
preseason. Laviolette has to do this next year. Just get the three of them out there for one
I
line.
so just if anyone wanted to figure this out, Dylan Rubric is 6'7". So he he is huge. So he would be probably the shortest of the three, which is funny to even say to begin
So
with. But Dylan
Rempe
Rubric,
is
and
six
and he's
seven.
almost
All
there.
three of them are 6'7". All
All
three of them
3
are
of them are
6'7".
6'7". Yeah. Yeah. That's a pretty big fourth line, and Rubrek is progressing really well from what I've heard. He's definitely got some bite to him. He's got some skill to him. So I think, once you're able to move past Sam Carrick, if Bryce McConnell Barker isn't the guy and you can't find another option that can fill in the gap, I think Rubrek could make a pretty good case. And then you can also look at Noah Laba as well, who's also, he's only 6'3", I think. But he's also an option that could be, sort of like on the bigger side. But
So
I
Yaro
just imagine
Shemilar
Hemlash.
Shmilar.
Hemlash. Yaroslav
What?
Hemlash. Yeah. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Okay, that
Hemlash.
is not how that name is spelled.
I know
Anyway,
it sounds like
with a
Hemlar because
C,
of
an
the AR
H,
at
and
the
an
end,
M.
but it's
Let's go do
Yaroslav
that hockey.
Hemlash.
He's 6'4". He's the other giant guy, but he's actually very skilled.
Yeah, he is.
Like he
That's
could
another
be a
option
middle
too.
six player at his peak.
Right, but that's another option too. And just to touch on this real quick before we finish, is that again, just to touch on Chris Drury and the scouting and drafting that a lot of these that the guys have done um after John Davidson. Well, John Davidson and Jeff Gordon um have done is they've essentially gotten a lot of players who are big and who are skilled. I think Hemlash was I think part of that regime, but you just look at a lot of the guys that they're bringing in now, Noah Laba, Dylan Rubarek, uh, even when Gordon was here, they were focusing on that. I just want to preface that too. So they're getting a lot of guys who are big, a lot of guys who are skilled, and it really gives them a lot of options, and it hopefully can bring something to this team that they've been missing for a while. Just big brutes who can play. If you
Yep.
ever look at a lot of these Stanley Cup winning teams, they have a couple of guys like that who are rough and are skilled, not just height wise. So hopefully, I'd love to see Rubrek with Edstrom and Rempe. I would just laugh, and then everybody starts crying. But that is a really good point about the Islanders and Matt Martin and Curtis McDermott. Because one, why? But anyways, that's beside the point. So
So
anyways,
funny. So it's. I thought that all these guys were jury draftees. I
they're
didn't
almost
realize
Jordans.
that two of them, Rempe and
Gordon.
Edstrom, were
Mhm.
Gorton draftees, and
I think that was his last draft too, if I'm correct.
the
Or maybe Ed.
2020 draft was his last draft, where we got Laff, Schneider, Cooley, Garand, Berard, and Rempe.
That's pretty good.
That's absurd.
That's actually,
There are already
yeah.
three bona fide, at least middle of the lineup guys. Laugh is obviously Laugh. Then you got
Mhm.
Berard, who is going to be a Ranger soon. You got Rempe,
Mhm.
who's Rempe, and Garand, who, if Igor decides to take his talents to Anaheim, then
Good luck.
Garand's the next guy up. And then you look at the
Yeah.
2021 draft, and
And
that's a little rough.
yeah. Well, that's another episode for another day, but I know what you're
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about.
The 21 draft. Othman, who I think is trade bait. Gruby, they traded already. Korczak is not playing very well. He didn't play well
No,
in his overage year. Brody Lamb is a project. He looks good. Väisänen was just sent back to Finland for a year.
Finland.
Boyko's
Yeah.
not good. How do you pronounce Schmidt? Pronounce? Give me his name again. Yaro,
Yaroslav Hemlash.
him, and then Hank Kempf, who was another big guy, but he just isn't panning out.
I
That's
think
for 21's a rough draft.
I think that was just a rough draft in general, but I think his 22 draft was pretty good if I'm
22 was
correct.
Sikora. They didn't have a first round pick. Sikora,
No.
McConnell Barker, Laba is a find. Laba's going to be on somebody's radar
Yes.
next year.
Yep.
Mancini, as we've seen. Barbashev,
Mhm.
they didn't sign. And Zachary Karpa, I don't know. I guess he's still in college. I don't know anything about this kid.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'm
Nothing crazy
surprised.
there.
I am surprised Barbashev didn't stick around. I heard a lot of hype about him. Um,
They
but
chose not to sign him. His
oh,
rights
they
are
did it.
up.
Oh.
He's in the ECHL. Like he's not. He Guys have played in the ECHL and then come up to be NHL regulars, like Dan Girardi.
Right.
But that's exceedingly rare. He's 20 years old. He had what looks to be a rough final season. Yeah, oh,
Mm,
that's a bad final season. Oof.
because his brother is obviously
Yeah, Ivan.
Ivan Barbashev, who's now on the Vegas Golden Knights. But I will say this though, and we'll finish with this, is I think Sakura, Bryce McConnell Barker, and Noah Laba definitely do have potential. Probably Laba and Mancini more, and Sakura too. I don't want to completely rule him out. I know he hasn't really, he's still young. I guess I believe in this kid. Um, there's always one or two prospects that I'm always like kind of like have on my radar. Everybody knows I was a big Adam Edstrom guy. A lot of and I'm not saying that everybody here can attest to that. I know you can say that, Dave, and even Will Wright when he was on the podcast at one time. I asked about him, and I said there's something about that guy that I liked. So I'm glad I was right, even though I'm not a scout by any means. So, but anyways, well, thank you, Dave, again for coming on. We hope to have the rest of the crew back here in the Peanut Gallery, and I say that with all the love in the world. Um, but thank you again for taking the time out to listen. Thank you for taking the time out to check out our content. We'll have a bunch more coming up, and we'll definitely have another podcast coming up for you soon with more stuff about the Rangers. So, with that being said, have a good morning, afternoon, and evening, or whenever you're listening to this, and let's go Rangers.